It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412, whether that's X, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Facebook. We're on all of it, so go check us out on there. Also, go check us out on YouTube. If you're watching over on YouTube, thank you. Leave a like on the video, and if you're not, go subscribe to us on YouTube. Like the video, leave a comments on the videos, let us know what you want to see, let us know if you like what you're seeing so far, or continue to post more stuff on YouTube as well. But yeah, this is the Steelers episode of the show, and it's an exciting episode because we get to talk about a Steelers schedule. The 2024 schedule on Wednesday got released. Your boy had the sources, and by your boy, and definitely not talking about me, talking about my counterpart over here. But yeah, he was batting 1,000 on the day. So Smitty, what did you think about the entire, not just the schedule itself, but everything leading up to it? Because I know getting into source off, leaking everything, it's an exciting deal for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's really, I would say, since 2020, this has kind of become my thing during schedule week, to try to be the first on a lot of these. I know Pony is right there. I know that Pony's got a lot of these. He was first on a lot of these too. But at Steelers Now, the article, I think I had 6 games first before anybody else, which I will take. The home opener against the Chargers, week 5 against the Cowboys, week 7 against the Jets, week 8 against the Giants, definitely week 18 against Cincinnati, and maybe week 13 at Cincinnati. So yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. Anytime that I'm getting into a source, 93.7 was the one. I think it was Chris Muller. I'm not trying to single anybody out here, but I'm not saying he got bad info because he even put out that it was a rumor that he was hearing that Dallas was going to be week 14, not week 5, which would have made more sense for a reason that we'll get into in a second. But yeah, I felt very comfortable because of who my source is that was not the case. But yeah, really weird schedule. My first takeaway is how long it is before we play a divisional opponent. We don't see them until after the bye, week 11. And then from that point on, it's the division, it is Philadelphia, and it is Kansas City. So they're gonna, if the Steelers make noise this year, if they get into the playoffs, they're certainly going to earn it. I was talking with a player on the team today about this, and I was like, people aren't going to be able to say that you guys backed your way into the playoffs this year. Like, if you get to the postseason, it's going to be well earned with what you guys have on the back half of that schedule. So yeah, it's crazy to me that they don't see a divisional opponent until week 11. That was my first takeaway. My other takeaway was this weird stretch of primetime games right in the middle. Like I mentioned, that week 5 against Dallas on Sunday Night Football. Then they go week 6 to Vegas, but then week 7 and 8 against the New York teams, Jets Sunday Night Football, Giants Monday Night Football. So 3 games in 4 weeks on prime time, either Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. That's a weird stretch there too. Starting out, obviously, 2 back-to-back on the road at Atlanta, at Denver, but then they finished 2 at home to end the season. So take that for what you will. I think that that's probably beneficial, all things considered, especially with who they play. They drew a Christmas game this year against Kansas City, a 1:00 kick. Not sure what I'll do with that one yet as a season ticket holder, if I will be there or not. I'm on the fence if I'm going to go. I promised you I would bring up being a season ticket holder on this episode, so that's why I had to drop that in there. But yeah, interesting schedule this year. Very weird. As weird as I can remember, mainly due to the divisional stuff. 3 of their first 4 on the road, 4 of their first 6 on the road. So yeah, I mean, a lot of different things here that you just typically don't see in a given year. It's an odd schedule for sure.
Yeah, one of the first things that stuck out to me, and not going to be cliche and just say all the divisional stuff, is what you just mentioned. 3 of the first 4 on the road and then 4 of the first 6. I feel like that's something that's very front heavy, being on the road, not something that's super common. But I do like the front half of the schedule especially compared to the back half of the schedule. I think there's some very good opportunities for the Steelers in the front half of their schedule. I think that interesting enough, not only are those 3 primetime games, they're later games, obviously all 8:20, 8:15 kicks, but that Raiders game too, even in the middle of those, it's not a primetime game, but as far as East Coast goes, that's not a 1:00 game either. That's going to be at 4:05, 1:05 if you're in Vegas. But that's 4 games in a row that are not going to be played at 1 p.m. Eastern. for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an interesting stretch. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously the glaring part of the schedule, not playing a divisional opponent until week 11, and then you have all of your games except 2 from week 11 to week 18 are divisional opponents, is absolutely nutty to me. I don't know who at the NFL disliked the Steelers when they were making their schedule or thought, hey, this is a good idea. Like, what does the other AFC North schedules look like? Are they similar to this? I mean,
Cleveland's is definitely very similar. My friend Dennis sent me theirs, and it's pretty similar. I mean, they play a divisional game before week 11, but like very similar on the back end.
I mean, I just don't know who would look at this schedule and be like, yeah, this is probably a good idea. Especially because I would think that with AFC North is known as, at least maybe I'm biased here because I'm a Steelers fan. They're in the AFC North. But I would think the AFC North right now is known as the best division in football, top to bottom. And so I would have thought that if you're the NFL, you'd want to spread those games throughout the season, especially with a fan base like the Steelers that's going to be watching some of these games, spread some of these games throughout the season. Very interesting to me that they are literally all back half, all after the bye, and all crammed together. That's going to be an absolute gauntlet to run through. And then not only do you have all those divisional opponents, but you have to play at Philadelphia, and then you play Kansas City on Christmas Day, which I got to say,
Kansas City after Baltimore 4 days prior.
Yes. Man, that is tough. That Baltimore game, by the way, 4:30 p.m. kick. So, I mean, it's only a 3.5 hour difference, but I feel like every hour it makes a difference whenever you're beating up your bodies like that.
Sure.
But I got to say, as a fan, I much prefer the game being on Christmas Day than Christmas Eve, mainly because in my opinion, or at least like how I view Christmas, the more sentimental feeling of Christmas to me was always Christmas Eve. So if I'm going to spend time with family and stuff, I'd rather it be Christmas Eve, not have an involvement of football, and then football could be on Christmas Day. Now, as someone that could potentially go to the fan or to go to the game, I'm curious to hear what you think about that. And I'm very curious if we could hear like a player perspective. Maybe you could shoot a message to somebody and get like their thoughts on what they think. Playing on Christmas Day, playing on Christmas Eve, I'm curious what they would prefer. Obviously, it probably affects both, but the fact that the game is at least at home, you don't have to travel on Christmas Eve to get somewhere for a game on Christmas Day, so you at least have that factor. But you still have to prepare for the game the day before, so it affects your Christmas Eve. But I'm very curious to see, like, out of the two, what would they prefer? Do they prefer playing on Christmas as opposed to like Thanksgiving? Or I understand, like, if ideal scenario, you probably don't want to play on a holiday whatsoever as a player, but I'm just curious to see like what their preferences are on this.
Well, what you just said is the media and player perspective, at least from the ones I've talked to. For me personally, if they were going to play on Christmas, I wish it would have been later than 1 o'clock. Just because I feel like you're still leaving pretty early in the day. Like, I don't know how much you're going to get done on Christmas morning. At least you're right about the Christmas Eve. Like, Christmas Eve is bigger than Christmas Day. In my house, we do, the gifts for my nieces and nephews on Christmas Eve. We have our bigger meal on Christmas Eve. There's more people at the house on Christmas Eve. So I agree on that aspect. I just wish if it was going to be on Christmas Day at all, it was later. But from a median player perspective, that isn't the case. If they were going to play on Christmas around the time, Eve or day, they would want a day at home at 1 o'clock. So this is as good of a scenario for them if they were going to play on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, at least from the one media perspective that I got and the one player perspective I got. They can still do their thing on Christmas Eve, don't have to travel. Because if they were playing on Christmas Day on the road, you're traveling on Christmas Eve. If they were playing on Christmas Eve on the road, you're either traveling very early on Christmas Eve or the day before and missing all of Christmas Eve, plus potentially some of Christmas flying back. So, like, it's as good of a situation as it could be for them having to play on Christmas, that it is at home, it is at 1 o'clock. For me, I just wish it was at, and there's not even an 8 o'clock game, which I thought was weird. It's 1 and 4:30, the two games on Christmas. I thought it would have been 4:30 and 8. So I'm interested to see if that's what we see going forward, beyond this year. I'm interested to see if like the Netflix agreement is a thing going beyond this year, because that how many streaming services do we need to have now for
I
out
don't
of
even have
market people?
Netflix anymore.
You're the one that I mean, this doesn't affect me because inside the market, it doesn't matter. Even if I'm not at the game, like in market, still fine. It will be shown locally, but like out of market people, that's a game changer. Speaking of game changers, what's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. Thank you, Smitty. Gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Code AT412 saves you $10. Go check them out. Link in the description, of course. I'm actually wearing one right now. Trey Palomar, the same one I was wearing in that commercial, because guess what? That was shot today. So, but that's a game changer, and I want your opinion on this, because you're seeing more and more games outsourced to these streaming services where you got to have Peacock, you got to have Amazon, you got to have NFL Plus, you got to have ESPN Plus. Now you got to have Netflix to be able to watch the Steelers on Christmas.
I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's a money grab. And don't get me wrong, from a business perspective, I totally understand why the NFL makes these deals, because these sources of Amazon and Netflix, they're going to throw a lot of money at you to get these games, especially some of these primetime games. Like, I can only imagine, and I don't know if the dollar figure is actually out there, what these games cost, but I can only imagine what it costs to get these primetime games on Christmas Day. Like, that is probably
they said it was actually
number.
I mean, yeah, well, because of what you would consider it would be, I guess it's lower than like what the expectation would be. They said it was less than 150 million. Which is still a lot of money.
I don't know how to gauge that, because to me, when I hear 150 million, that's a ton of money. But like, that's just my peewee poor brain, I guess, not the NFL rich brain. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they're doing this. I feel like, obviously, this is the way that things are going to go. This is the way that not just NFL, but like media in general, TV in general, a lot of it is going to these streaming platforms. Like, there's shows that I can only watch on specific media platforms that are coming out, and instead of being on TNT or NBC or whatever, they are on their individual streaming platforms. So I get it. Like, I totally understand why the league is going to do that. I just think it's ridiculous, though, that they're going to continue to outsource to all of these different ones. Like, I'm waiting for the day that you're going to get stuff on Hulu and on Apple TV, and how many different things are going to be, like, where you're going to have a subscription to everything if you're going to want to watch these games. I think it's a shame that it's gotten to this point, but from a business perspective, I get it. Like, I totally get it, but I hate it. I also hate it. I think it's dumb that I have to have 4 different streaming platforms just to watch a full season of Steelers football. So yeah, that's my take on it. I don't like it, but I understand it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where this continues to trend. I mean, there's not many more ways that they could be outsourced, and I know we're never going to see it like with the Super Bowl, but we've seen it with playoff games. We've seen playoff games get put on individual streaming platforms, so we'll see how far that they go.
Super Bowl was on Nickelodeon, okay? It got outsourced.
But if we ever see that go to just the streaming platform, man, that'll be, I don't know how you deal with that, but I think that's the one thing that I really do like about the schedule is a week 9 bye. I feel like, when's the last time that we actually got a bye, kind of splitting the season up in halves like that? What was it, like 6 last year? It's typically around that range. It seems like the Steelers typically have an early bye. So I will say I appreciate that aspect of it. If we're going to have a second half gauntlet like they do, I'm glad to see they drew a week 9 bye.
I'm glad about that as well. And also, I want to get your take on this. So, non-divisional games, as a season ticket holder, going to keep throwing that out there, what is the game that you are looking most forward to that's not a divisional game? And I'm assuming that it's probably going to be one of either the Chargers, Cowboys, or Chiefs. I don't really think the Jets or the Giants have a chance, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, the Jets are actually, I would say the Jets, well, I'm probably not going to go to that Chiefs game on Christmas. So I'll say that. So, like, if you talk about just from a watching perspective,
boo this man.
hey, I didn't go when they played the Raiders on Christmas Eve a couple years ago either. Like, I don't know. I would rather just be at home with my family during the holidays. If that's the way that somebody else wants to celebrate, great. I think my uncle wants to buy the tickets, so we'll see. But for me, it's probably the
Price
Cowboys.
gouge.
Sunday Night Football. 600 a ticket. For me, it's probably the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, which is kind of why the Jets were in that conversation too, because it's Sunday Night Football. Like last year, we didn't have a home game for Sunday night. I'm not even sure if they did the previous year. We've had like a lot of like Thursday nights. We had multiple last year. We've seen Monday nights. Sunday night, I feel like has kind of eluded After Shore Stadium recently. So to get two within a 3-week span, I'm excited about that. And the fact that it's Cowboys who only come here once every 8 years, I'm excited about. So I'd say probably that one.
Yeah, the last time the Cowboys played here, Steelers lost.
Fake
that
spike.
game. Yep.
Fake spike.
And that didn't.
There's no reason they should have lost.
Didn't Zeke break for a late touchdown to win to seal the game? Yeah. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Can we do one more thing before we move on from the schedule? I just want to go game by game and get just like one gut reaction thought about each opponent. And you don't have to go game by game for all of the divisional ones, but just like whether it's a matchup or whether it's a certain player on the other team or just any gut reaction. So week 1 in Atlanta, my gut reaction is Kirk Cousins is an Atlanta Falcon.
Yeah, I would agree. I was just saying there's a lot of moving pieces there. So I'm excited that like a new regime. People were Arthur Smith revenge game. People I feel like are kind of underestimating Atlanta. They're the favorites to win that division. They're favored to win right now in week 1 by 3. So
I mean, if you're favored to win the NFC South, you're probably not that good of a football team anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm just saying that as a joke.
I get it, but like the Bucs just won it last year. They re-signed the same quarterback. They re-signed a lot of the same pieces. And yet Atlanta's the one favored to win the division. So they definitely feel like Kirk is that much of a difference for them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think he definitely is. Week 2 at Denver.
Another revenge game.
Russell Wilson revenge game.
I know
revenge game eventually, maybe. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I know that this is one that not only Russ has circled. Like they want that one for Russ a lot as players. So I'm excited to see how they come out in that one. I guess that's my only takeaway is Russ revenge game for right now. And back to back on the road, back to back at home last year. They're back to back on the road this year. Home
opener against the LA Chargers.
Very random home opener. Most excited about seeing Justin Herbert in person. That's that would be Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's. I don't know if that's probably not his first away game. They probably don't start home, but first time back in Pittsburgh. Let's come back
to me, that seems, and maybe this is the wrong reaction to have, least intimidating NFC or AFC West team to me, right as of right now, and mainly because offensively, I just don't think they have a lot going on outside of having Justin Herbert.
That's fair. It's just, man, I feel he's just that much of a needle mover for me. Like I would still, if I'm sitting here, and I'm not saying it's going to play out this way because you're right. Like if you go top to bottom in the roster, they probably aren't as strong as some of the other teams. But like I think he just elevates them above everybody else besides Kansas City. Like if I'm projecting division win totals right now, I'm still having them above Vegas and Denver.
Yeah, I'm just looking at like their running back. What did they just trade with the Raiders or trade with the Ravens? Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
Kamani Vidal is going to be this year's version of who was the back in Houston a couple years ago that no one was talking about and then just became the starter out of nowhere. Dameon Pierce. Kamani Vidal out of Troy. When you watch this guy play, he looks like Jaylen Warren.
Okay.
He's awesome. And I feel like he's going to end up overtaking those other guys.
Yeah. I mean, like, your second best player on offense is probably Joe Alt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just that's my gut.
Good tackles, though, right? I mean, they got Slater as well. They got good tackles.
Oh, yeah. Alt and Slater is a good duo to have offensively. I think it's mainly when I look at their wide receivers, I'm just like Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, DJ Chark. Like Ladd McConkey could be good. Quentin Johnston, he had a terrible rookie season.
Yep.
Especially for being
I do like that landing spot for Ladd though. But yeah, you look at the receivers like Keenan Allen, cut. Keenan Allen traded.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Williams, cut. Speaking of cut, Smitty from around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. There you go. Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2, Beaver, PA. But yeah, they've kind of just reshaped that wide receiver room just in an instant. Austin Eckler no longer there in Washington now, which is just, I feel like it's gonna be weird to watch the Chargers without Austin Eckler on that team. But yeah, I don't know what the Chargers are gonna look like. My takeaway is very random home opener for the Steelers.
Yeah. Week 4, Indianapolis at Indianapolis.
Hopefully Anthony Richardson's healthy. I want to see Anthony Richardson play, so that would be my takeaway. That's true.
I was trying to think of like anybody on the teams that kind of like has like a matchup or something.
We'll see if there's still bad blood last year from DeMonte Casey's hit on Michael Pittman.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's interesting. All right. Week 5, home against the Cowboys.
Obviously, Mike McCarthy coming back to Pittsburgh, a coach that a lot of people, for whatever reason, want to replace Tomlin with. Dak is a free agent after this year, so I guess technically this could be the last time that he plays in Pittsburgh in a Cowboys uniform. CeeDee Lamb is a player that I love, one of my favorite non-Steelers, so I'm excited to watch him play. Obviously, Micah Parsons on the other side of that, one of the best defensive players in football. The Cowboys are going to be a good team, so I'm excited for the game in general. I don't know that I have like a specific one thing that I'm excited about.
I think one thing that I'll look at is to see how many Cowboys fans are going to be in Acrisure Stadium. Because
that's true.
I relate it similarly to like the 49ers last year. The Cowboys are one of those brands that have fans everywhere and will pack a stadium. And there were a lot more 49ers fans than probably most expected to see in the home opener last year. I'm curious to see how many Cowboys fans are going to show up. It's going to be a lot. I'm curious to see how much it is actually going to be. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But Raiders the following week at Las Vegas. I think to me,
game. On the other end of that what you just said about Dallas, on the opposite spectrum of what you just said about Dallas, Steelers fans are going to invade Vegas just like they did last year on Sunday Night Football.
That's a good point. And to me, I was thinking about let's try not to give 200 plus against Devontae this time.
Yeah. I would agree. Who's going to be Gardner Minshew? I guess a quarterback for them. That'll be intriguing to see a different quarterback than what we saw last year. A guy that can at least be, a steady presence for that offense. Hopefully, stay healthier than what Jimmy G was able to do for them. But yeah, my takeaway is I expect the Steelers to travel similarly to Vegas.
Do we think that there's any chance that Aiden O'Connell is the quarterback in that game instead? I don't know how the Raiders view him.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, you gave Gardner 2 years, not just one, which to me says
that's true.
Like they expect him to be the guy for at least a year.
That's true. That's a good point. Okay, the following week, Sunday Night Football again against the New York Jets. To me,
it's all about Rodgers, right?
I would say my main takeaway is Aaron Rodgers back in the Jets uniform. Hopefully, he makes it past 4 plays this season.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't, we're not going to see him anywhere close to this game. So, but yeah, should definitely be his last time, I would think, in Pittsburgh. So, we'll see. But that's
I mean, that's another reason to look forward to that game too, as a season ticket holder.
Yeah, I would say so. That defense is really good. So
Okay. Following week, a little bit longer of a break because you play on Monday night the following week against the New York Giants. New York teams back-to-back weeks.
yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing to look forward to in this one, first round pick Malik Neighbors, one of
My
those
dynasty
explosive
pick,
players.
by the way,
Yeah,
fell to
he's
7.
awesome. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Drake May went ahead. That's why I think it was May, right? That probably threw that out
Drake
because
May
everything
went
else was
after
kind of
I
chalk.
picked it. Drake. I took Jaden Daniels at 3, and then Ryan took
Oh yeah, he
Drake
went
May
before
at 4.
7 though. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
like Bowers probably went ahead. Like there had to be one thing that in it, I would say that it was May going that early that kind of made Neighbors slide.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that would be
Wha-
my only thing I'm looking forward to.
One thing that I think, not really looking forward to it, just very probably gonna feel weird this season and maybe for that game too. No Saquon Barkley on the Giants, which just like kind of feels odd to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is going to be.
But
Who's their main back now?
Devin Singletary.
Okay. I mean, he is a NFL back, I guess. But
I mean, when I look at their depth chart, Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, Tyrone Tracy Jr., and Gary Brightwell.
yeah,
I mean, yeah,
Singletary.
that's definitely an NFL backfield. Then you got the bye week. We already mentioned bye week. Good spot in the season to actually have that bye week, kind of split up the season that way. And then you come out of the bye playing the Washington Commanders on the road.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by this one just because of how much turnover there's been. Dan Quinn, now the head coach. Obviously, Kingsbury's there. Jaden Daniels, who they selected number 2 overall. Another one of my favorite players in the NFL, Terry McLaurin's on that roster. Yeah, I think there's a lot of intriguing things with Washington. I don't think they're going to be a good football team in 2024, but I think that there is some intrigue there surrounding them.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels to me sticks out. I kind of see how he does in his rookie year, especially because I have him, like I said, in a dynasty league now. But I do have Marcus Mariota as backup in case he does get pulled. So I have the security net there as far as dynasty goes. But yeah, a lot of turnover from like past teams to now for the Commanders. Austin Eckler, like you mentioned, just talking about the Chargers, he's in Washington now. Going to be weird to see him not in a Chargers uniform and in a Commanders uniform. But yeah, that'll be an interesting one. And man, Commanders are one that I don't think they're going to be a great football team, but I think their defense, if the Steelers' offense continues to struggle, can give them fits.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they defend Jaden Daniels. You know, we're definitely one of the better teams, or have been one of the better teams at defending Lamar. You're going to have a similar blueprint, in my opinion, like the best version of Lamar. And maybe already we see, like, Patrick Queen's obviously going to play dividends in that, but like Peyton Wilson, who was a really good QB spy at NC State, are we to see all 3 linebackers? Or not all 3? Are we going to see 3 linebackers? Because I mean, we can have this conversation later down the road. Still don't know what's going on with Cole Holcomb. Like they're being very mum about that situation. So we'll see if he is part of the mix. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they defend Jaden.
Speaking of defending a mobile quarterback, the next week you open up your first division game in Week 11 against the Baltimore Ravens at home.
There it is. You know, with these divisional games, it's harder to have takeaways, right? Because we do this every single year. We know what we're getting. These 2 teams know each other so well. My takeaway: Patrick Queen going against his old team. There you go. That's all I got.
That's a good one. My takeaway for the Ravens, probably every game moving forward until he proves me wrong, is that Lamar plays his worst football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So there's that. And then they play on a short week against the Cleveland Browns on Thursday Night Football.
Now or never. Now or never for Deshaun Watson. If he doesn't put it together this year, I mean, I'm not a Browns fan, so I don't care what they do, but like this is it for me. I mean, I would be pulling the plug after this year if he doesn't put it together.
I gotta agree with you too. I mean, you gotta be sweating if you're the Browns, knowing that what contractually you're tied to with this guy, and how underwhelming his career as a Brown has been. So curious to see what he looks like this season, especially against the Steelers. But we're gonna have to wait a while to figure that out.
And I hope Nick Chubb is fully healthy.
Yeah, I do too. That's that injury happened against the Steelers last year. You were at the game. Man, what a devastating injury to watch. But yeah, hopefully he's fully healthy. He's a fun player to watch, despite being a Cleveland Brown. So want all the best for him. But then the next week they play Cincinnati on the road. So I think whenever I think of Cincinnati, healthy Joe Burrow. Hopefully by that time of the season, you're getting another healthy Joe Burrow matchup. Because last year injuries plagued him again.
I'll save the Burrow. Well, Burrow could be set for the next one too. So, are we going to see T. Higgins? Is he still going to be a Bengal?
That's true.
I think it's true. But I'm just throwing it out there that he's the only franchise tag player that didn't sign a deal yet. He's the only one that looks like he's going to go into the season on a franchise tag. Is he cool with that? And if Cincinnati, depending on what position they're in at the trade deadline, would they move him?
Did you see friend of the show, Dan Orlovsky and Adam Schefter? Kind of.
I saw. I didn't see the exchange. I saw like people talking about it. I didn't actually see it. I like that you said friend of the show, Dan Orlovsky, though. Unfortunately, you didn't have the chance to have a discussion with him, but I love Dan. I hope that he's able to at some point come back on here so both of us can have a conversation with him.
Basically, the gist was if T. Higgins plays on the franchise tag and gets injured in week like 6 or 7 and doesn't play for like majority of the season, is he still going to get paid the bag that people are expecting by like not just necessarily the Bengals, but just some team? And Orlovsky was basically saying it's not guaranteed. Schefter said, well, it's practically guaranteed. Just look at the history of people giving contracts out. So
Orlovsky was saying he doesn't think that it's a guarantee that T would still get paid well in free agency.
Like if he gets injured again and injured in like early in the season and sits for a majority of the season, he doesn't think it's necessarily a guarantee that he's going to get the big contract that people are expecting him to get.
My thinking is like it just takes one team. So I love Dan, respect the hell out of him. I disagree. I think he is going to get paid like a.
That's basically what Schefter was saying. Is that like anybody can give him that contract? It just takes somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Browns again at home. Do we want to double up on the divisional opponents, or we can just skip them?
No, I mean, yeah.
Browns again at home.
First take.
So whatever. Eagles on the road.
Not the same Eagles. I think that still presents a tall task. I just don't think it's as daunting. They got gashed on the ground last year. If the Steelers are going to run the football the way that, like on paper, we think they're going to be able to, they should be able to match up pretty well. And no Jason Kelce there on the opposite side of that for the Steelers pass rush in their interior of the defensive line. I don't know. I'm not looking at this the same way as I did when we faced them in 2022. That's all I'm saying. I still think that they present a challenge for the Steelers, obviously, but like Jalen Hurts took a step back last year. Like, how much was everything that they did in that run to the Super Bowl about Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon? Because they leave, and all of a sudden, that looks like a very different Philadelphia Eagles team.
Yeah, that's true. I'll say that it is a revenge game for what season was that? The 2016 season, where the Steelers went to Philadelphia and lost 34-3 or something like that.
Yeah.
That is the last time that they played there. It's a revenge game in my eyes, even though the rosters are totally different, not the same teams whatsoever. I just, from a fan perspective, for me, I want to avenge that loss that they had 8 seasons ago. And then the final one that's not a repeat is Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day.
I'll say what everybody's thinking. The matchup everybody wants to see. There's only one reason you're buying a ticket for this game. Sierra versus Taylor Swift. That's the matchup that everybody's looking forward to. Steelers, Chiefs. The press boxes are going to be electric.
I guess that's a question. Will Taylor Swift be at the game? Wonder what the Vegas lines are on that.
I mean, she's going to want to spend Christmas with Travis, right? So, like, makes sense for them to be together on Christmas Day already.
That's true. That's
and then
true.
go from there.
And there's no way she has like a
Travis is going to propose to Taylor Swift at the point.
I mean, what a spot.
Or Mount Washington.
Washington.
Probably.
Or maybe outside of Acrisure Stadium where Art Rooney's statue is. I think
have him do it on the incline. As well.
She can sit on Art Rooney's knee and he can
some lady there was a video Bucko Banter Pod is their name. By the way, they've kind of just recently came into the space and they're putting out a lot of great content. So I know that they want to collab soon. We'll see if we can make it happen. I hope that they understand we are not the go-to guys for Pirates baseball. We're not even the second or the third or the fourth.
I don't think we'd make top 10
when it comes to Pirates baseball. But I appreciate them. Anyways, they made this video. They always go to home games and they got these mini mics and they just like ask people questions. And someone was like, what do you want to tell Paul Steens about Pittsburgh? And like, what advice would you have for somebody just coming to Pittsburgh? This lady said, make a baby on the incline. And I was like, what? Did she? Like, is that how one of her children were conceived? But anyway, yeah, the incline, another great place, Travis, if you wanted to go that route. So that would be my takeaway is Taylor Swift, Sierra, a lot of star power in the building potentially.
Maybe we can get a boxing match.
That would draw way better than the football game, in my opinion.
Although I tell you what, while I think that Sierra could win in a boxing match, I'm pretty sure Swifties
dance contest
would be able to take out Steeler fans and Sierra fans. They're nuts.
Just in numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would just be overwhelming. I don't think that they would be able to carry it all. The interesting part would be seeing Swifties that are also Steeler fans. Where does their allegiance lie? That would be the question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to ask my niece. She's definitely much more of a Swiftie than a Steeler fan, though. So, how about, she told me the other day when I got home from I left during the rain delay, by the way, of that Steens game. And then I made it home before the game restarted. So I was watching the game and they were sleeping over. And we were talking about the Pirates and my mom asked me a question about them. And Amelia was like, who cares? They're not going to win. They never win. Like, geez.
Man, I wish I had.
She's got Pirates baseball down.
I wish I had that outlook on the Pirates when I was her age. Because I definitely did not. I went to the ballpark dumb and naive, thinking that the Pirates had a chance to win every single time I went to the ballpark when I was a kid. This is me growing up in the 2000s. So like I'm like in the Jason Bay era of baseball, thinking that they're going to win some baseball games. Sadly, they did not. I did not see my first Pirates win in person until I was 19 years old.
Insane. It's insane to think about. I think that's it. Right?
Yeah.
In terms of the schedule.
That's it in terms of the schedule. Yes.
Okay. Well, the other thing that we wanted to talk about is the Cam Heyward situation, which is interesting. 35 years old. Obviously, he's been around the block for a long time, only with this franchise. So you would think, like, does he need to go to OTAs? Probably not. Like, it shouldn't be a big deal. But I think why it is a bigger deal is because he is in a contract year. And also, he's always been at OTAs. So it's just different for him to not be there. But anyways, going into the last year of his deal, apparently he's not going to be at OTAs as he seeks a new contract. What do we make of this? Big deal? Not a big deal? Should they even want him at OTAs given his age? Like, should they want him doing much right now or just save him to training camp? Where do you lie on all this?
I don't think it's a super big deal that he's at like the voluntary workouts or OTAs. I don't think that has really anything to do with Cam Heyward, the player this season. I don't think it's going to affect him whatsoever. And honestly, like you said, at his age, I honestly would rather him not do that. So show up in training camp, and that's when you can start to actually do some football workouts. But until then, I'm fine with that. But as far as like the rest of it goes, him wanting a contract it coming out that he wants to play another 3 seasons, and whether that's in Pittsburgh or not, or he hopes it's in Pittsburgh, but he wants to play another 3 seasons. At his age, he's 35, so that would mean that he would be wanting to play until he's like 38, or at least pushing 38. I don't know what age he would be at the end of that 3rd season, whether he'd be 37, 38. But still, like, that is a tall task for any player.
His birthday's in May, so but he just
okay. So he'll be like 38 in that last season, or may actually no, he'll be 36 this season. So that means he'd be 37, 38, 39 in that final season.
He turned 30. He turned 35 on May 6th. So if he plays this as one of the 3, he'll be 36 going into next year, then 37 going into the final year of his contract.
Okay. So the year he'll be turning 38 will be his final year. So 37, 38. Man, it's tough. That's a tough situation if you're the Steelers, because I do think that while I think he was a good player, you did see a little bit of a dip in play. Now, whether that's injury related or age, I feel like that's probably unfair for me to be the judge of where to distribute some of that blame. But I do think you saw some dip in play last season. And if you're wanting to give him a contract, what does that contract look like from a financial standpoint? As of right now, he's got the 2nd biggest cap hit on the team. You would imagine that as a player that's going to be 36 in the first year of that contract, you'd expect that cap hit to go down. But does Cam Heyward expect that cap hit to go down? Especially when I feel like in different circumstances, I feel like you could say the team has the leverage. But if you look at the Steelers depth chart, you look at the way they have addressed defensive tackle itself, it seems to me that Cam Heyward, as long as he performs, especially like if they go into the season without a contract and he still performs well this season, he holds all the cards. But as of right now, I'd say he holds most of the cards, because they don't have a great succession plan for a 3 technique defensive tackle. You could say like, well, they have Keanu Benton, but are they going to want to slide him over to 3 technique and take him away from nose? Like, I don't know what the plan is there. And even besides that, you have Cam Heyward there that could be moving on. But then you also have, like, what's the future of Larry Ogunjobi going to be after this season? I feel like there's a lot of question marks along the defensive tackle spots that the Steelers have not done a great job as far as like succession plan goes in answering. And so for Cam Heyward specifically, I think that as long as like you're confident that the play isn't going to diminish, like falling off a cliff, you should probably be willing to sign that contract, expecting that cap hit is going to go down with this extension, because you don't have a great plan after Cam Heyward. You look at the guys that you have behind him. There's not a lot of guys that you would be comfortable saying, I feel like this guy can be a starting every down the defensive tackle, like 3 technique. I don't think that they have that right now. They didn't address it in this year's draft. And that's something that I say every year, that the time is coming for Cam Heyward to be up in the Steelers uniform. Eventually it's going to happen, and the Steelers have to prepare for that, whether that's sooner or later. They should probably be preparing it sooner. And I feel like if they had been preparing for it sooner, the decision for this would have been easier if they were to deny the request for a extension with Cam Heyward. But now I feel like they've kind of cornered themselves into a situation where, as long as they trust that it's not going to fall off a cliff, they kind of have to put themselves into a situation where they do give him an extension and just kind of hope for the best, because I don't think that there's a lot of succession going on behind him.
Yeah, it's tough because of like who he is off the field too, right? Like I know that this comes down to football ultimately, and Omar Khan, I have full faith that he'll make the best decision here in regards to what to do. But like, there's just so many other factors for us as fans. I feel like the emotional part of it that plays into it. You try not to get attached to players, but like, how do you not when you talk about a guy that's only been with this organization? Like, it's a lot easier said than done when some circumstances come about like this one. That said, Nick Farabaugh was on of Steelers Now was on 93.7 talking to Donnie Football about this, and he said that he expects him to sign a contract extension within the $19 million range. That is not something that I'm interested in. If you're talking about 2 or 3 years, 2 years, like in terms of the term, I can get on board with 2 years, lower the cap hit this year, and as long as it's not something egregious next year. At the same time, part of me thinks, especially with what they have right now, with the contract they have at quarterback, this is probably the best year to have Cam just take up a bunch of cap and then move on. Like, as bad as that sounds, and I don't want him to go and play for another team. Ideally, it's just the end of the road for him. But like, if he doesn't want that, I can't Nobody can force him to retire if he thinks he can still keep playing. But I have, some serious questions because of the way that he came back from injury last year as to what next year is going to look like. I do think that a lot of last year was injury related, and it's not necessarily a doubt of the ability of what he can do. I'm just hesitant that he's going to be anywhere close to the same player because of how the injuries have hampered him, not who he would be if that injury didn't happen. So I don't know. For me personally, 2 years max, and hopefully you can get him more in like the 15-ish range for each of the next 2 years, like around 20 million or over 20 million. I don't see that, and I don't think it's worth it on the Steelers from a football perspective to do that. So as much as that sucks to say, if you can't extend him, looking at cap hits of around 15 million for each of the next 2 years, and that's it, I would play this year out.
Yeah. And it sucks because I don't want, like, as much as I understand from the business perspective, the way looking at it, I don't want to see another player get Troy Polamalu or Hines Ward, where they are an all-time great in the uniform, but it's just.
Would you rather that happen or
that
see him play somewhere else?
I mean, I'd rather. Well, that's the thing, right? Ultimately, it was up to those guys not signing those other contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like Taylor, you could put in that.
Sure,
as well.
It sucks to see them basically be forced into a retirement, but ultimately it was up to those guys not to sign other contracts. Like Hines Ward's literally said he was in the room with the Chiefs about to sign a contract, and he said he just couldn't do it because he wanted to finish his career.
Taylor was about to go with the Titans with LeBeau.
Yeah, and so it's ultimately up to the player. But if I had my choice, my selfish pick, I'd rather see him forced out and then not sign another contract. But that's the part of the problem is, like, there's no guarantee that they're not going to sign that next contract, even if they get forced out. So if Cam Heyward is very certain that he wants to play another 3 seasons, who's to say that another team's not going to give him a contract and he's just going to go with what he wants to do as far as like playing years goes? I think that would suck to happen. Would it hurt his Steelers legacy? I think so. I don't think at all, but like it would change probably how some people view him if he signed for another team.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a difference between playing for one team your entire career as opposed to seeing him go somewhere. It'd be like Franco going to the Seahawks, Jerry Rice going to the Seahawks, like.
But I don't think the Steelers have set themselves up, and I know a lot can change from year to year, and you can like set yourselves up over an offseason better. But unless they went out and got like a free agent defensive tackle next season, or unless they like drafted one like in the first round next season, which I'm not going to say isn't off the table because it's next year's a good defensive tackle draft. But unless they were able to do something like that, where it's like you're getting a guy that is going to be your starter at that position from day one next season, they're currently in a position right now where they don't really have a lot of options looking at the future of that position that are currently on the roster. I don't think they've set themselves up based off their current roster for a lot of future success that isn't outside of a guy like Cam Heyward. But like I said, a lot can change. They could sign somebody or draft somebody. They could change that instantly.
I think that we've seen them. Hopefully, we obviously don't know until the football is kicked off and we see them play games, but you hope that they've rebuilt the offensive line now, right? Like hopefully that's in place and they're done doing that. So I almost feel like we're going to see them now because of Andy Weidl's influence and knowing how important the trenches are. Now it's time to flip it to the other side. So I think like next draft, you could see them attack defensive line the same way that we've seen them attack offensive line recently.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough when you're talking about players that aren't just good football players, but mean what they do to these franchises. Like it'd be different if this is like I'm trying to think of a good example, like a Bud Dupree situation where he just signs another contract somewhere else. They part ways and it's not that big of a deal. But since it's Cam Heyward, he's been here for over a decade and what he means to the franchise. It's just, it sucks from the fan perspective watching these things play out, especially not knowing how these things are going to play out because you always want the happy ending, but you're not always going to get it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have made a joke right there about the happy ending, but
about Bob Kraft.
I'll save that for the roast of Tom Brady. Which, by the way, great conversation. You guys know I always like to cross promote my podcast. We just had Landon Roberts, Steelers linebacker, on Steelers Afternoon Drive today. Time of recording this today. So go check out that episode. We got to talk to him about the roast of Tom Brady. Like, he was on a team with Tom Brady, and we were talking about the roast of Tom Brady. It was a great conversation. Talked about a lot of different things. Obviously, winning a couple Super Bowls with New England, coming to the Steelers, feeling like he always should have been a Steeler. Just a lot. Now he's taking on a role, obviously, as like a leader in the room, and he's only been here for one season. So, Peyton Will. My favorite part about everything that we talked about, Peyton Wilson's locker, right next to Landon Roberts.
That's good. Good leadership influence for the young rookie.
Yeah. So big fan of that. Anything else Steelers wise?
No, I think we can get out of here.
There we go. If you're looking for some merch, whether it's around the 412 merch, maybe some Steelers designs, you know who to hit up. Smitty, tell them about it. Need a custom t-shirt, hoodie, tumbler? Stop what you're doing. Don't go anywhere else. Check out the link in the description. Everything Custom Designs. Our friend Haley Wagner, small business. She can do all that for you. She even does around the 412 merch, t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeve tees, bunch of different stuff. I even got a tumbler from her as well. So go check out the link in the description. Goes directly to her Facebook page. All of her stuff can be found there. Again, everything Custom Designs. Haley Wagner. She does great work. Can't recommend her enough. Go check it out. There we go. Link is in the description, whether you are watching this on YouTube or listening somewhere else. So be sure to check that out. Get yourself some customized merch. Again, around the 412 shirts, hoodies, all that stuff can be found through her. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything we talked about. What you think about the Steelers schedule. Also, leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. We can be found there. For Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.